morning. Today I'm sharing with you what I call the half bridge rolling. This is a move I do every single day when I wake up and often before I go to bed. If you don't have a floor grounding practice, this is a great way to start. This is pretty much the first move I teach all of my clients, athletes, seniors, beginners, advanced. It's just a great way to roll away and ground tension, neck, back, hips, and just coordinate a rotational pattern, throwing pattern, walking pattern. So, first move is laying down on the ground. I highly recommend to open your feet and go through some rocks or through the foot postures. So we're going to lay down, and it's really important to try to let your body relax and feel, I like to say, can you feel your bone weight? So with my body, I want to do a little body scan. So it's important to be on something that's kind of soft. You don't want to start this practice too hard. So doubling up yoga mats, having a nice cushion fitness Pilates mat, and maybe putting them side by side or in the grass. So I'm going to begin with my left knee bent and left foot to the ground, right? So this is a very foundational movement for something also called a Turkish get-up. But it's a very foundational movement for an infant that's learning how to roll. Right? So I want to notice my foot, right? So the tripods, big toe, pinky, and the heel. And what I want to feel is that weight in that foot waking up the back of the hip, right? Which will create that feeling of lift of the hip. So we'll begin with the leg integration. Foot, I like my foot slightly turned out. Most people that is because I'm going to be moving to the right. If my foot's too far away, that won't feel, it will feel like too much pressure in just the heel. I do want pressure to start in the heel, but as my hip starts to lift and my knee kind of, I want my knee to move a little bit more to the midfoot, so I start to get whole foot, whole hip, right? So letting the breath flow in through the nose, feeling that wide expansion, top to bottom, front to back, side to side, and on my exhale, I'm going to start to think of pouring. So I'm not just pushing. This shouldn't require a whole lot of effort. It's like you want to feel maybe 25% of effort. Right. And I'm going to reposition my foot as I feel like I want to, right? You'll feel your body start to tell you where it wants to go. And some people say sending the ground away. That's part of it. I do want to feel pressure down, but I also want to feel the ground coming up through my foot, which is lift of the arch, engagement of the seat, of the hip. Right? And then my thigh bone will start to spin. Right? So it's going to spin in on my way down, it's going to spin out on the way up. My pelvis is going to counter rotate. So I'm actually getting hip rotation here. Right? And it doesn't have to be super high. And then I want to watch my rib cage. So I don't want my back super arched. I do want my ribs to try to drop down so I can keep my arm across my rib for a moment. And try to just feel how as I'm loading through the foot into the ground, that my hip starts to move to the right. And my ribs are kind of wanting to go too. Right? Exhale. Find your whole foot. So where your knee is at matters. If it's falling forward too soon or falling feel the whole hip, right? And when I feel the whole hip, the front of this hip actually opens. So this great move for tight hip flexors is that there's an opening here, but the opening comes from the brain sensing the ground and tone and support here. That's how it works, right? The body's not going to let go of holding tension here unless it can sense support somewhere else, right? And then if I take my arm up and I just look at my hand with soft gaze, I don't want to be too tight in my elbow. I want to open up my hand. I think about the little jiu-jitsu practice that I did. This is that yielding, right? So how do I open my hand from my fascia, not from my muscles? How do I straighten my arm, not from my muscles, but from my myofascial connections? So it's a little bit, it's softer. And then as I start to load even more, this arm is going to be down along the side of my head, or it could go behind if that's more comfortable. I'm slowly going to pour into the ground through my foot. I'm going to sense the ground through this right leg. So I'm not trying to use my right side to lift. I want to sense down weight. And then the arm and my gaze and my head start to send me to the right. I'm slowly going to roll back down. I'm going to find my hand, find my foot. And as I follow my hand with my eyes, that starts to lead me across while I'm using my foot. I'm breathing. I can breathe into my back here. Slowly rolling back down. So what that feels like, it's kind of feels like like you foam roll, right? The side that's relaxing, that's grounding, it is working a little bit with tone, a grounding tone. So when I'm loading in that whole foot, I want to give that foot a moment. So we'll switch to the other side. Let your bones drop into gravity, head heavy, breastbone heavy, ribs heavy, hips heavy. Melted foot, soft breath. So I'm going to start with just the hips. This is that beginning rolling. How do I use the ground to move me? How do I use the ground to move me instead of me doing something against the ground? That takes a lot more effort, right? Pushing, right? I can just use the ground reaction force, grounding force, ground, lifting, right? There's so much less effort in that. That's our myofascial, that's our fascia body. We're evoking that with just enough. That flow, that yielding, right? Allowing the breath in. See if you can sense your thigh spinning, your thigh bone spinning, right? Kind of out on the way up, and it feels like it kind of spins in on the way down. So you're getting internal external hip rotation here. I'm going to change my foot position. Sometimes if our ribs are really flared, we need to think about kind of softening them in with width, right? Not that I want to crunch them in, right? There's an in-between place for everything. And as I use a soft peripheral gaze, and that keeps my chest kind of open, right? And that keeps me in my fascial body than if I am really in hard gaze, right? If I'm lifting my head and leading with my arm, it's a very different feeling than allowing that yielding, right? So when I get to my side, I'm going to kind of flex my foot. I'm going to kind of, if I ground through my ribs, my head will lift from my center. I don't have to lift my head, I can keep it down. So even without all these fascial cues, this is a great movement pattern. You'll start maybe just feeling some stretches in your back. You may not really, and see my foot's starting to leave. If I keep going, right, this foot will leave the ground, and then it finds it again. So I could keep going. This practice for me, sometimes I'll just go into a roll, and I'll just kind of roll and pour back. So it is a simple move that can be really, you can really dive into that movement sequence. It's such a gift that keeps on giving. So when you start, you may kind of do it more from an over-efforting and muscular and stretchy place, which is totally okay. But the curiosity behind that is, how do I sense the ground moving me? How do I sense a softer hand? Well, every time I ask people to flex their hand or straighten their arm, it comes from a really hard place, and the hand is like, everything is kind of overworking when we think from just a muscular biomechanical place. But when we think about our fluid fascia, right? Our arms are straight, but the elbows are not locked, right? That puts a lot of tension in my neck. When I reach through my whole hand, it has like 4 corners and the palms open, right? It's an opening, an expansion, and a gathering. So if you have any questions on this move, please message me. And if you have questions and others have questions, and I can clarify or break down some more of the ways of thinking about this movement. When we change the way we think about how we're moving, our experience changes. So when we can think about our environment moving us and moving with our environment, that we begin to experience more of that flow state that keeps us in more fluidity and natural response.